In this video, we're taking a calm journey into the life of one of the most influential figures of our modern age, Jeff Bezos. From a garage in Seattle to the vast reaches of space, this is a story about curiosity, persistence, and the quiet moments that shaped an empire. We'll walk through the dusty roads of a Texas ranch, sit in the glow of early computer screens, and feel the excitement of building something from nothing. So relax, close your eyes if you'd like, and let's drift into this story together. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share in the comments where you're watching from. Let's begin. The year is 1964, and in Albuquerque, New Mexico, a baby boy enters the world. It's January 12th, a cold winter day where the desert air carries a particular crispness. His mother, Jacqueline Giese, is just 17 years old. She's young, still in high school, and the world feels both impossibly large and terrifyingly small at the same time. The baby's biological father, Ted Jorgensen, is a circus performer, a man who rides unicycles and juggles, bringing laughter to crowds. But this story, like many stories, doesn't follow the path anyone expected. The baby is named Jeffrey Preston Jorgensen. He doesn't cry much in those first hours. The nurses notice how alert his eyes seem, how they follow movement across the hospital room. His mother holds him close, feeling the weight of responsibility settle onto her young shoulders like a heavy blanket. She's determined, though. Even at 17, there's a steel in her that won't bend easily. In those early days, life moves in the rhythm that all new parents know. There are feedings in the middle of the night, the soft sounds of a baby discovering his own voice, the exhaustion that seeps into your bones. Jacqueline's parents, Lawrence and Mattie Giese, step in to help. They're not wealthy people, but they're steady, reliable. Lawrence works for the Atomic Energy Commission, a job that sounds grand but mostly involves paperwork and the kind of steady, careful thinking that government work requires. The marriage between Jacqueline and Ted doesn't last. Sometimes things just don't work out, and this is one of those times. By the time Jeffrey is learning to recognize faces and smile at familiar voices, his biological father has drifted out of the picture. It's not dramatic, not the stuff of movies. It's just life, moving forward as it does, carrying some people along and leaving others behind. When Jeffrey is 4 years old, something changes. His mother meets a man named Miguel Bezos. Mike, as everyone calls him, came to the United States from Cuba when he was 15, alone, part of Operation Pedro Pan. Imagine that for a moment. 15 years old, leaving everything you know, everyone you love, boarding a plane to a country where you don't speak the language, carrying nothing but hope and fear in equal measure. Mike is different from Ted. He's studying to be an engineer at the University of Albuquerque, working hard, building a life through sheer determination. When he meets Jacqueline and her young son, something clicks. Maybe it's recognizing resilience in another person. Maybe it's the simple human need for connection. Whatever it is, Mike doesn't just fall in love with Jacqueline. He falls in love with her son, too. The adoption process is quiet, bureaucratic. Papers are signed, a judge approves, and Jeffrey Preston Jorgensen becomes Jeffrey Preston Bezos. Jeff doesn't remember much about this time. How could he? He's just a small child, more concerned with toys and cartoons than legal documents. But Mike becomes dad, fully and completely, in all the ways that matter. The Bezos family grows. A sister, Christina, arrives, and later a brother, Mark. The little house in Albuquerque fills with the sounds of children playing, arguing over toys, running through rooms. Mike works for Exxon now, and the job is stable, the kind that lets a family breathe a little easier. But it's the summers that shape young Jeff in ways that will echo through his entire life. Every summer, Jeff goes to stay with his maternal grandfather, Lawrence Preston Giese, at his ranch in Cotulla, Texas. If you've never been to that part of Texas, it's hard to describe. It's not the Texas of movies, all cowboy swagger and oil derricks. Cotulla is quiet, dusty, a place where the sky stretches so wide it makes you feel small. The ranch sits on thousands of acres, and to a young boy from the city, it might as well be another planet. Preston Geese, or Pop as Jeff calls him, is a fascinating man. He'd worked for the Atomic Energy Commission, eventually rising to a position of significant responsibility. He'd been part of the early days of America's space program, involved in projects that most people never heard about. But now he's retired, spending his days on this ranch, fixing fences, tending cattle, solving the thousand small problems that come with managing land. Jeff arrives every June, bursting out of the car with the pent-up energy of a school year released. The ranch house is simple, practical. There's no air conditioning, just fans that push the hot air around. The refrigerator hums in the kitchen. The screen door slaps shut with a bang that becomes the soundtrack of summer. Pop doesn't believe in idle hands. From the first morning, Jeff is put to work. Not in a harsh way, but in the way of a man who believes that doing teaches more than watching. They repair windmills together, the old metal structures that pump water from deep underground. Jeff learns to use tools, how a wrench fits just so, how you have to feel when a bolt is tight enough without stripping the threads. The work is hard. The Texas sun beats down mercilessly, and there's no escaping it. Sweat soaks through shirts by mid-morning. But there's something meditative about it too. The repetitive action of fixing fence posts, one after another, the rhythm of hammering, the satisfaction of seeing a straight line of wire stretching across the prairie. Pop doesn't talk much while they work, but when he does, Jeff listens. They're not grand speeches, just observations. See how that hinge is wearing? That's because someone installed it wrong 20 years ago. Shortcuts always come back to haunt you. Or, when you're fixing something, don't just patch it. Figure out why it broke in the first place. These lessons sink in, deeper than either of them might realize at the time. The ranch has cattle, and cattle need care. Jeff helps with vaccinations, a messy, chaotic process. The animals don't cooperate, they're scared and strong, and you have to be quick and decisive. There's a moment where Jeff, maybe 9 or 10 years old, has to help hold a calf still while Pop administers a shot. The calf is kicking, Jeff's arms are straining, and for a second he thinks he can't hold on. But he does. And afterward, breathing hard, covered in dust and probably worse, he feels something new. The pride of doing something difficult. Evenings on the ranch have their own rhythm. Dinner is simple. Meat, potatoes, vegetables from the garden. The family eats together, and afterward, as the brutal heat of day fades to the warm embrace of evening, they sit on the porch. The sky turns colors that seem impossible, deep oranges, purples, reds bleeding into darkness. Stars emerge, more stars than Jeff ever sees in the city, a blanket of light that makes the universe feel close enough to touch. Sometimes Pop tells stories. He talks about his work with the government, carefully, never revealing classified information, but painting pictures of the early space program. He describes watching rockets launch, the earth-shaking roar, the fire and smoke, the impossible dream of reaching beyond our atmosphere. Jeff sits completely still during these stories, his eyes wide, his imagination igniting. Other times, they're just quiet together. The sounds of the ranch at night are their own symphony. Crickets chirping, the distant lowing of cattle, the wind moving through mesquite trees. It's peaceful in a way that the city never is. There's space here, not just physical space, but mental space, room for thoughts to expand and wander. Pop has a workshop, a shed filled with tools and equipment and half-finished projects. It becomes Jeff's favorite place. There are spare parts from old machines, electronics that Pop has salvaged, drawers full of nuts and bolts and mysterious components. Pop gives Jeff problems to solve. The gate motor isn't working. Figure out why. Jeff spends hours troubleshooting, learning through trial and error, developing a systematic way of thinking. Test one thing, see what happens, adjust, try again. One summer, Jeff decides he wants to build something ambitious. He's maybe 11 or 12 now, old enough to handle more complex tools, but young enough to still believe anything is possible. He wants to make an alarm for his room, something to keep his younger siblings out. Pop doesn't dismiss the idea or do it for him. Instead, he asks questions. What do you need it to do? How will you power it? What happens if someone tries to disconnect it? Jeff sketches plans, rough diagrams that are more enthusiasm than engineering. He scavenges parts from the workshop, experimenting with ways to make a switch that will sound a buzzer. There are failures, lots of them. Wires that don't connect properly, batteries that drain too fast, false alarms triggered by nothing at all. But Pop just nods and says, "What did you learn? What will you try differently?" The alarm eventually works, sort of. It's unreliable and clunky, but it's his, built with his own hands from his own ideas. The pride he feels is immense, disproportionate to the actual achievement. But that's how it is when you're young and you've made something real. The lessons from these summers go beyond mechanical skills. Pop teaches through example about self-reliance, about the satisfaction of fixing things yourself rather than calling for help. There's no IT support on a remote ranch, no handyman to call when something breaks. You figure it out yourself or you live without it. This breeds a particular kind of confidence, a belief that problems are solvable if you're willing to work at them. Years later, Jeff will talk about these summers as formative, foundational. He'll describe his grandfather with deep affection and respect, crediting him with instilling values that shaped everything that came after. But in the moment, as a child, he probably doesn't realize how significant these experiences are. He just knows that summer means freedom, means working with Pop, means the ranch. Back in Albuquerque during the school year, Jeff is a bright student, curious about everything. His parents notice early that he has an unusual ability to focus when something interests him. He'll spend hours absorbed in projects, building elaborate structures with Legos or taking apart electronics to see how they work. His room is a chaos of half-finished experiments and salvaged components. Jacqueline is a fierce advocate for her children's education. She believes deeply that learning is the path to opportunity, and she pushes the school system to challenge Jeff appropriately. When the regular classes seem too easy, she fights to get him into gifted programs. She's not being a pushy parent for the sake of pride. She's trying to make sure her son's curiosity doesn't get extinguished by boredom. Mike, meanwhile, shows Jeff what dedication and persistence look like. As an immigrant who came to America with nothing, Mike has worked incredibly hard to build a career. He studies engineering, works full-time, supports a growing family. There's never any question that work is important, that you show up, that you do your best. But Mike also makes time for his kids, helps with homework, shows interest in their lives. The Bezos household is not wealthy, but it's stable and loving. There are family dinners, birthday celebrations, the ordinary rhythms of middle-class American life. Jeff grows up knowing he's loved, knowing his parents believe in him, and that foundation matters more than we often acknowledge. At school, Jeff is the kid who raises his hand constantly, who wants to know why, who isn't satisfied with surface-level answers. Some teachers find this delightful, others find it exhausting. He's particularly drawn to science and mathematics, subjects where there are clear answers and logical progressions. He joins the gifted program, where he's finally surrounded by other kids who share his intensity about learning. There's a science fair project in elementary school where Jeff decides to study the effects of weightlessness. Obviously, he can't actually create a weightless environment, but he designs experiments to simulate aspects of it. His presentation board is meticulous, covered in carefully written observations and hand-drawn diagrams. He doesn't win first place, but he doesn't seem to care. The doing of it, the learning of it, was the point. Reading becomes another passion. Jeff devours books, science fiction especially. Authors like Isaac Asimov and Robert Heinlein capture his imagination with visions of future worlds, space exploration, technological progress. These aren't just entertainment. They're blueprints for what might be possible. He reads late into the night, flashlight under the covers when he's supposed to be asleep, traveling to distant galaxies and alternative futures. The public library becomes a second home. Jacqueline takes him regularly, and he leaves with stacks of books, sometimes more than he can carry. The librarians come to know him, setting aside books they think he might like. There's something beautiful about a child in a library, surrounded by the accumulated knowledge and stories of humanity, able to explore any topic that catches his interest. Around the house, Jeff starts showing entrepreneurial tendencies early, though nobody calls it that at the time. He and his siblings set up lemonade stands, not unusual for kids, but Jeff is the one calculating costs and profits, figuring out optimal pricing, thinking about location and customer traffic. Even in play, his mind works in systems and strategies. One Christmas, Jeff receives a Heath kit, one of those build-it-yourself electronic devices that were popular in the era. It's an AM radio, and it comes as a box of components and a detailed instruction manual. For many kids, this would be frustrating, too complex, quickly abandoned. For Jeff, it's perfect. He spreads the parts across the kitchen table and begins the meticulous process of assembly, following the instructions step by step, soldering connections, testing circuits. Mike helps sometimes, checking his work, offering guidance when Jeff gets stuck. But mostly Jeff figures it out himself, developing patience for detailed work, learning to follow complex instructions precisely. When the radio finally crackles to life, pulling signals out of the air, it feels like magic. Understanding how it works doesn't diminish the wonder. It enhances it. As Jeff moves toward adolescence, his interests begin to crystallize. He's fascinated by space, by computers, by the intersection of science and possibility. The 1970s are an exciting time for all of these fields. The Apollo program has put humans on the moon. Computers are beginning to move out of corporate labs and into schools and homes. The future feels tangible, approachable, something you might actually live to see. There's a particular afternoon, Jeff may be 12 years old, watching a documentary about the space program with Pop during one summer visit. The narrator discusses plans for space stations, for permanent human presence beyond Earth. Pop comments offhandedly, "In your lifetime, people will be living and working in space. It won't just be astronauts on missions. It'll be regular folks." Jeff thinks about this constantly afterward. Living in space. What would that look like? How would you build structures in zero gravity? Where would resources come from? These aren't just idle daydreams. They're problems to solve, challenges to work backward from. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Right now, Jeff is still a kid, still splitting his time between Albuquerque schools and Texas summers, still building and breaking and learning. The seeds are planted, though. The curiosity, the work ethic, the belief that you can figure things out if you try hard enough. These are all taking root. In the quiet moments, lying in bed at the ranch house while the Texas night presses in warm and full of sound, Jeff's mind races. He thinks about the stars visible through his window, about all the books he's read, about the projects waiting in Pop's workshop. The future is vast and undefined, full of possibility. He doesn't know yet what he'll do with his life, but he knows somehow that it will be something interesting, something that matters. For now, though, sleep comes slowly, as it does for young minds buzzing with ideas. The cattle settle outside, the windmill creaks its steady rhythm, and a boy in Texas dreams of impossible things that might one day become possible. The Bezos family moves when Jeff is entering high school. Mike's work with Exxon takes them to Miami, Florida, a world away from the desert landscapes of New Mexico and Texas. Miami in the late 1970s is humid, lush, tropical. Instead of endless horizons of scrubland, there are palm trees and ocean breezes. Instead of the quiet of ranch country, there's the bustle of a major city growing and changing rapidly. Jeff enrolls at Miami Palmetto Senior High School, and it's here that his path starts to come into sharper focus. He's no longer just a curious kid with varied interests. He's becoming someone with direction, with specific passions that are starting to point toward a future. High school is a strange time for everyone, isn't it? You're not quite a child anymore, but you're not yet an adult. You're trying to figure out who you are, what matters to you, where you fit in the world. For some students, high school is about social dynamics, about popularity and fitting in. For Jeff, It's more about intellectual challenges and finding people who share his particular enthusiasms. He's not unpopular exactly, but he's also not the stereotypical high school success story. He's intense in a way that some peers find off-putting. When he gets interested in something, he goes deep, talking about it endlessly, not always reading social cues about when others have lost interest. But there are other students like him, other kids in advanced classes who get excited about science projects and computer programming. And these become his people. The science program at Palmetto is strong, and Jeff throws himself into it. He joins the science club immediately, and within a year he's leading it. There's a quality he has, even at this age, of being able to articulate a vision and get others excited about it. When he proposes ambitious projects, his enthusiasm is infectious enough that other students go along with ideas they might otherwise dismiss as too complicated or time-consuming. One particular project stands out. Jeff and a group of fellow students decide to create a device to measure solar energy collection. This is during the energy crisis era, when people are thinking hard about alternative energy sources. The project isn't just theoretical. They want to build something functional that could actually collect and measure solar radiation over time. They spend months on it, meeting after school in the science lab. There are calculations to work out, materials to source, prototypes that fail in various instructive ways. Jeff is in his element. He's not the only smart person on the team, but he's the one pushing them forward when frustrations mount, suggesting new approaches when they hit dead ends, keeping track of all the moving pieces. The device they eventually build is crude by professional standards, but it works. They set it up on the school roof and collect data over several weeks. Jeff creates detailed charts and graphs of their findings. At the science fair, their presentation is thorough and professional. They win awards, but more importantly for Jeff, they've done something real. They've taken an idea from conception through execution to actual results. That complete cycle of creation is intoxicating. Around this same time, computers are beginning to appear in schools. These aren't the sleek devices we know today. These are machines with green text on black screens, requiring arcane commands to do the simplest tasks. Many students find them frustrating or boring. Jeff finds them fascinating. He teaches himself basic programming, staying after school to use the computer lab when it's available. Programming has a particular appeal for someone with Jeff's mind. It's pure logic, cause and effect, systems that can be built and refined. You tell the computer to do something, and if your logic is sound, it does exactly that. If it doesn't work, it's not the computer's fault. It's because your instructions weren't precise enough. There's something deeply satisfying about that clarity. His early programs are simple: calculations, basic games, utilities to solve math problems. But with each one, he's learning not just the syntax of the programming language, but the deeper logic of computational thinking. How do you break a complex problem down into discrete steps? How do you anticipate different scenarios and create branches to handle them? How do you make code efficient, elegant? There's a teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, who sponsors the computer club. She recognizes something in Jeff, a hunger to learn that goes beyond grades or credit. She gives him access to more advanced resources, suggests projects that will stretch his abilities, occasionally stays late to answer questions, or just to see what he's working on. Good teachers do this, you know. They spot the students who are genuinely passionate about learning, and they nurture that, not because they have to, but because they remember what it was like to be young and excited about discovering new things. Jeff's academic performance is excellent across the board, but it's in science and mathematics where he truly excels. He's not just memorizing formulas, he's understanding underlying principles. He can look at a problem and see multiple approaches to solving it, weighing the merits of different methods. His teachers sometimes have to remind him that, while his alternative solutions are correct, he should probably also learn the standard approaches, since that's what will be on the AP tests. Speaking of which, Jeff loads up on advanced placement courses. He takes AP Physics, AP Calculus, AP Chemistry. His schedule is brutal, the kind that makes guidance counselors raise eyebrows and suggest maybe scaling back. But Jeff doesn't want to scale back. He's energized by the challenge, by learning at a pace that actually keeps his attention. His classmates have mixed feelings about him. In group projects, everyone wants Jeff on their team because they know he'll do excellent work and pull the group's grade up. But he can also be frustrating to work with. He has strong opinions about the right way to approach things, and he's not always tactful about expressing when he thinks someone else's idea won't work. He's learning slowly that being smart isn't enough. You also have to bring people along with you, make them feel valued even when you're redirecting their contributions. The valedictorian race at Palmetto is competitive. Several students are vying for the top GPA, taking the same advanced courses, earning the same high marks. Jeff is in the mix, though he'll ultimately be the salutatorian, not valedictorian. Years later, he'll joke about this, but at the time, there's probably a small sting to it. He's not used to coming in second. His valedictory speech, though, is memorable. He talks about space, about humanity's future beyond Earth, about the importance of preserving our planet by expanding into the solar system. For a high school graduation speech, it's ambitious, visionary. Some parents in the audience probably think it's just youthful idealism, the kind of grand dreams that reality will temper. They don't know that this particular young man will spend the rest of his life working toward exactly these goals. But we're getting ahead again. Before space companies and online empires, there's college to attend. Jeff applies to Princeton University, among other schools. Princeton accepts him, offering a place in their class of 1986. In the fall of 1982, Jeff says goodbye to his family in Miami and heads north to New Jersey, to one of the most prestigious universities in the world. Princeton's campus is beautiful in a way that makes you understand why people write poems about academic SETI. Gothic architecture, tree-lined paths, old stone buildings that have housed brilliant minds for generations. For a kid from public schools in Florida, it's simultaneously inspiring and intimidating. The academic culture at Princeton is intense. These aren't just smart students. These are the valedictorians and star students from high schools across the country and around the world. Everyone here was exceptional in their previous context. Now they're all together, and the competition is fierce. Jeff initially plans to study physics. He's been fascinated by the fundamental laws of the universe, the elegant mathematics that describes how everything works. In his first physics courses, he does well, but he also encounters something new. There are students who are better at physics than he is. Not just a little better, but significantly better. People who seem to intuitively grasp concepts that Jeff has to work hard to understand. There's a particular moment that becomes formative, though it's painful at the time. Jeff is in a quantum mechanics class, struggling with a problem set. He and his roommate, another student named Joe, are both stuck on the same problem. They work on it for hours, filling pages with equations and diagrams, getting nowhere. Then they run into another student from their class, someone who'd been out at a party. This student looks at the problem they've been wrestling with and, right there in the hallway, solves it in about 3 minutes. Just solves it, like it's obvious, like the solution is right there on the surface, if you just look at it correctly. Jeff watches this happen and has a moment of clarity that's both humbling and liberating. He's smart, yes. He's very smart. But he's not the smartest person in the world, not even the smartest person in this particular building on this particular night. If he pursues physics, he'll be competing with people like that hallway student, people for whom theoretical physics comes as naturally as breathing. He could probably still have a career in physics, but he won't be extraordinary, won't be one of the people pushing the field forward. This realization could be devastating, and there's definitely some ego bruising involved. But Jeff has always been practical, always able to adjust based on new information. If physics isn't where he'll make his mark, then what is? He switches his major to electrical engineering and computer science. It's still deeply technical, still involves rigorous mathematics and systematic thinking, but it's more applied, more about building things than discovering fundamental truths about the universe. And in these fields, Jeff does excel. The combination of hardware and software, the way you can design systems that solve real problems, this fits his mind perfectly. Princeton's computer science program in the mid-1980s is excellent, riding the wave of the personal computer revolution. These are the years when computing is transitioning from mainframes to PCs, when companies like Apple and IBM are fighting for market share, when software is becoming an industry unto itself. The professors aren't just teaching theory, they're teaching skills that will be immediately relevant in a rapidly growing field. Jeff takes courses in algorithms, in database systems, in computer architecture. He learns multiple programming languages, C, Pascal, assembly language for hands-on hardware interaction. He studies complexity theory, learning how to analyze whether a problem is efficiently solvable or computationally intractable. These aren't just academic exercises, they're tools he'll use for decades. Outside of classes, Jeff is involved in various activities. He joins the Quadrangle Club, one of Princeton's eating clubs, those strange Princeton institutions that are part social club, part dining hall. It's here, over meals and late-night conversations, that some of the most interesting learning happens. Debates about politics, technology, philosophy, the future. Jeff is in his element in these discussions, able to engage with ideas, challenge assumptions, defend positions. He's also developing socially in ways that didn't happen as much in high school. College is where many people learn to be adults, to manage their own time, to balance work and relaxation, to build deeper friendships. Jeff is no exception. He's still intense, still driven, but he's learning to be more socially adept, to read rooms better, to know when to push an idea and when to let it go. There are long nights in the computer lab, of course. Every computer science major has these memories. The building nearly empty, the glow of monitors in the darkness, the quiet tap of keyboards, the occasional frustrated groan when code doesn't compile or produces bizarre results. There's a particular camaraderie among students working through the night on problem sets or projects, a shared suffering that bonds people. Jeff graduates from Princeton in 1986 summa cum laude with a 4.2 GPA, which is remarkable given Princeton's grade deflation. He's also a member of Phi Beta Kappa and Tau Beta Pi, the Engineering Honor Society. These aren't just participation trophies, they're recognition of genuine academic excellence at one of the world's most demanding institutions. Now comes a question that faces every graduating senior. What next? For many of Jeff's classmates, the answer is graduate school. A PhD in computer science, continuing to push into more theoretical realms. But Jeff has been in school for his entire life. He's ready to do something practical, to take what he's learned and apply it in the real world. He wants to build things that people will actually use. The job market for computer science graduates in 1986 is strong. Tech companies are growing rapidly, and they need talent. Jeff interviews with several firms, weighing his options. He's not just looking for a paycheck. He's looking for a place where he can learn, where he'll be challenged, where the work matters. He accepts a position at Fitel, a startup working on building a network for international trade. It's a small company, the kind where everyone wears multiple hats and the work is fast-paced and often chaotic. The technology they're developing is meant to facilitate communication and data exchange between traders and financial institutions across borders. New York City, where Fitel is based, is a shock after Princeton. The city is loud, crowded, expensive, exhilarating. Jeff finds an apartment, small and not particularly nice, but affordable on his starting salary. He learns to navigate the subway, to grab quick meals, to exist in a place where everyone is always rushing somewhere. At Fitel, Jeff is thrown into the deep end. The company is trying to do something technically complex, building networked systems before the internet as we know it exists. There are hardware considerations, software protocols, security concerns. Jeff works long hours, learning on the job, making mistakes and fixing them, gradually understanding not just the technical aspects, but also the business considerations. This is where he starts to see how technology and business intersect. It's not enough to build something technically elegant if it doesn't solve a problem customers actually have. You have to understand market needs, competitive dynamics, pricing strategies. These aren't things they taught in his engineering courses, but they're crucial to actually creating value in the world. After about 2 years at Fittel, Jeff moves to Bankers Trust Company. It's 1988, and Bankers Trust is one of the major financial institutions in New York. Jeff is hired to work on technology projects, applying his computer science background to financial systems. Banking technology in the late 1980s is in transition. Legacy mainframe systems are being updated or replaced. New financial products require new technical infrastructure. There's huge amounts of money flowing through these systems, which means the stakes are high. A bug in banking software isn't just embarrassing. It can cost millions of dollars. Jeff thrives in this environment. He's not just writing code, he's architecting systems, thinking about how different components interact, ensuring reliability and security. He's young, but he's clearly talented, and he rises quickly. Within a couple of years, he becomes the youngest vice president in the company's history. Think about that for a moment. He's maybe 26 years old, and he's reached a level that usually takes people decades. It speaks to his technical ability, certainly, but also to other qualities. His ability to communicate with non-technical executives, to manage teams, to deliver results under pressure. But even as he's succeeding at Bankers Trust, there's a restlessness. Banking is lucrative, and the technical challenges are real, but it's not exciting, not in the way Jeff wants his work to be exciting. He's building systems to move money around, to help wealthy people get wealthier. It's fine, but it doesn't spark anything in him. It doesn't feel like it matters in any larger sense. Then, in 1990, he hears about a company called D.E. Shaw. And company D.E. Shaw is a hedge fund, but it's not a typical hedge fund. It's run by David Shaw, a former Columbia computer science professor, and it uses quantitative analysis and computer algorithms to make trading decisions. This is before quant trading becomes common, before every hedge fund has teams of programmers and mathematicians. D.E. Shaw is pioneering this approach, using computational power to find inefficiencies in markets. Jeff is intrigued. This is a place where technical sophistication actually matters, where smart algorithms can generate real value. He interviews with the firm and is offered a position. The work is fascinating, exactly the kind of intellectual challenge he's been craving. D.E. Shaw's offices are in Midtown Manhattan, and the culture is unlike anywhere Jeff has worked before. These aren't typical finance people. Many of them have PhDs in mathematics or physics or computer science. Conversations at lunch might veer into theoretical discussions about algorithmic complexity or statistical modeling. It's intensely cerebral, demanding, competitive in a way that brings out Jeff's best qualities. He starts as a general analyst but quickly distinguishes himself. David Shaw notices him, starts giving him more responsibility. There's a quality Jeff has of being able to see both the technical details and the bigger picture, to write elegant code while also understanding the business strategy behind it. Within 2 years, Jeff becomes a senior vice president at D.E. Shaw. He's being groomed for bigger things within the firm, put on important projects, included in strategic discussions. David Shaw clearly sees him as someone with enormous potential. One of Jeff's projects is exploring new business opportunities for the firm. D.E. Shaw is successful in quantitative trading, but David Shaw is always looking for ways to diversify, to find new areas where their computational approach might create advantage. Jeff is tasked with investigating various possibilities. He looks at different industries, different technologies, trying to find opportunities that are being overlooked or undervalued. It's 1994 now, and there's something happening that's catching a lot of attention among technical people, though mainstream awareness is still limited. The internet is starting to grow at an astonishing rate. Jeff comes across a statistic that stops him in his tracks. Web usage is growing at 2,300% a year. Not 230%. Not even 500%. 2,300%. He reads the number again, making sure he's understanding it correctly. That kind of growth rate is almost unheard of. It suggests something fundamental is changing, some massive shift in how people communicate and access information. He starts researching more deeply, trying to understand what this means. The internet has been around in various forms for decades, primarily used by academics and the military. But the introduction of the World Wide Web, with its graphical browsers and hyperlinks, is making it accessible to regular people. Mosaic, the first popular web browser, launched just the year before. Companies are starting to create websites, though most people still don't have home internet connections. Jeff thinks about this constantly. That growth rate keeps echoing in his mind. If web usage is growing that fast, then businesses that can capitalize on it early have extraordinary potential. But what kind of business? How do you make money on the internet when most of it is free? He starts researching e-commerce, the idea of selling products over the internet. It's not a new concept in theory, but in practice, almost nobody is doing it successfully. There are technical hurdles: secure payment processing, database management, logistics of shipping physical products. There are psychological hurdles. Will people actually trust putting their credit card information into a website? But Jeff sees past the current limitations to the potential. If you could solve the technical challenges, if you could build customer trust, if you could handle fulfillment efficiently, then you'd have something powerful. A store that's open 24 hours a day, that can reach customers anywhere, that has unlimited shelf space, that can offer selection impossible for any physical store. He makes a list of products that might sell well online. He's thinking systematically about this, analyzing different categories. What would people be willing to buy without seeing in person? What products have enough variety that infinite selection would be valuable? What's lightweight enough to ship economically? Books rise to the top of his analysis. There are millions of books in print, far more than any bookstore could stock. Books are relatively standardized. You don't need to try on a book like you might try on clothes. They're lightweight and easy to ship. And book lovers are often looking for obscure titles that local stores don't carry. An online bookstore could offer a catalog vastly larger than even the biggest physical bookstores, solving a real problem for customers. The idea crystallizes. An online bookstore, starting with books but potentially expanding to other product categories later, using technology to create something that couldn't exist in the physical world. Jeff is excited in a way he hasn't been about any previous job. This isn't just another project. This could be something significant, something that changes how people shop. But there's a problem. D.E. Shaw isn't going to pivot to e-commerce. They're a successful hedge fund. Why would they chase this speculative internet idea? And so, we've reached the end of another history story. I hope this journey through the calm waters of the past has relaxed your mind and prepared you for a peaceful sleep. Thank you for sharing these moments with me as we get lost together in the depths of history. Each video is a story from the dusty pages of the past, and each story is crafted to be a lullaby just for you. If you enjoyed this video and it helped guide you towards sleep, please don't forget to hit that like button to support me. Subscribe to the channel to discover more of history's monotonous yet mesmerizing tales, and drift off to sleep each night with a whisper from the past by your side. Make sure to turn on notifications so you'll be instantly alerted when new videos are uploaded. Feel free to share in the comments which historical topics you'd like to hear about. Every suggestion you make could inspire the next video. Now gently close your eyes, take a deep breath, and surrender to the night. I wish you peaceful nights, sweet dreams, and a wonderful sleep in the embrace of history. Until we meet again on our next historical journey. Good night.